Hey YouTube, this is Doris, and I am here to do my Raw recap. And as you can see, I now have my own little setup. I have a woman's cave. Yes, that is Jimmy right over there that you see. So yes, it's right on the other side of his man's cave. But, you know, you gotta deal with what you gotta deal with. But anywho, so Raw was pretty good this week. There was actually a little bit of action at least. We started out with a match between Mojo Rawlings and Kevin Owens. It was a no DQ match. There was some chairs involved and a table, and Kevin Owens won the match when he pop-up powerbombed Rawlings through the table for the 1, 2, 3. After the match, he called out Seth Rollins and AOP. During this time, Samoa Joe was talking about how he didn't agree with Kevin Owens trying to stop AOP by himself. Yes, he agreed that they needed to be stopped because people were underestimating them, but that Kevin Owens couldn't do it by himself, and if he did not get help, that he was not going to be able to stop AOP and Seth Rollins. And of course, Seth Rollins and AOP ended up destroying Kevin Owens, and they apparently sent him to the hospital, according to the announcers. After that, we saw some of the matches that they had was Aleister Black versus local talent. Of course, it was a squash match and lasted about 10 seconds before the dude, what was his name? I will tell you his name. His name was Dean Russman. And it lasted about 10 seconds before he got the black mass. And on the way up the ramp, Buddy Murphy was coming down. Buddy Murphy had a squash match with another dude, and it was someone named Joesa. That's Joeasa. And that again was pretty much like 5 seconds long. Murphy did a jump up knee and pretty much knocked the guy out. One move, looked back at Aleister Black, who was still on the stage, and got the pin. Aleister Black came back down to the ring, got in the ring, put his hand out for Murphy to shake it, and Murphy kind of gave him the whole psych thing and walked by Aleister while shoulder bumping him. Before he got out of the ring, he stopped and turned around to, I don't know if he decided that he was going to shake Aleister Black's hand or what, but he turned around to meet a black mass and got knocked the F out. And Aleister Black sat in the ring next to him. At this point, they announced that next week we're going to have a rematch of Aleister Black versus Buddy Murphy from TLC. So that's next week for the final Raw of the year and the decade. Also, next week we are going to have the wedding of Bobby Lashley and Lana. Ooh. Speaking of Lashley, we had a match between him and Cedric Alexander. Of course, he speared Alexander and won the match. Uh, we saw clips of Tazawa over the weekend beating R-Truth for the 24/7 championship. Throughout the show, they show Truth chasing Tazawa through New York with a referee trying to win back the title. And we saw Ryder and Hawkins come out. Ryder was going against Drew McIntyre. Of course, Drew McIntyre with a Claymore kick took Ryder out and then took Hawkins out just for good measure. We had Becky Lynch come out and once again call out Asuka. Asuka came out speaking Japanese, and apparently Becky Lynch also speaks Japanese because Becky Lynch replied to something Asuka said in Japanese. Becky told Asuka that she would put the belt on the line if that's what it took, in response to Asuka calling herself Asuka 2 belts. So Becky told her, name the time, the place, and I will put the belt on the line. So we're waiting to hear when that match will take effect, but we will see. And we had a clip of Ray and AOP from last week. We know that Ray is defending his title against Seth Rollins tonight. And we had Tony Reese from 205 take on Ricochet. Ricochet won with the recoil. Charlotte Flair faced someone named Chelsea Green. I'd never heard of this girl, but she seemed to pretty much hold her own throughout the match. Of course, Charlotte did control the majority of it, as we can expect, and ended up winning it with a tap out to the figure 8. And then we go back to Tazawa and Truth, and we see them run into a Santa Claus. And Santa Claus tells them he's got presents for them. Tells Truth that his present is in his sleigh and Tazawa's is in his bag. When Truth goes to the sleigh to get his present, Santa Claus knocks out Tazawa and pins him for the title. So now we have a Santa Claus 24/7 champion. Then we have a 6-man tag between Randy Orton and the Viking Raiders versus the OC. This kind of went back and forth. They did show Randy with his knee taped up. If you remember last week, he had a match with AJ Styles. Well, AJ ended up working on his knee last week. So his knee ended up coming into effect and allowing AJ Styles to pin him after the flying forearm. We had Eric Rowan go against someone named Travis Horn. Get another squash match for him. Then we had R-Truth pin Santa Claus to win back the title. Rusev went against No Way Jose, won the match. Post-match, he got on the mic and said that he was happy for Lana and Lashley and that he still needed to get his retribution from his loss at TLC. And then finally, our main event, which is Rey Mysterio versus Seth Rollins. Of course, we know that AOP came out and stayed by ringside. And yes, they did get involved. Yes, they did beat the crap out of Rey Mysterio. And during this time, once again, Samoa Joe was saying how Kevin Owens needed help. Kevin Owens needed someone from the back to stand with him to take out AOP because he was not going to be able to do it by himself. They ended up dragging Ray up to where the announcers are. Both of the other announcers, King and I don't remember the other guy's name, but they ended up moving. Joe refused to move. AOP was yelling at him, telling him to get up. He kept saying no, and then he said, if I get up, it's to beat your asses, not to move for you. And he stood up, and they were arguing back and forth. Seth Rollins got in between them, and Seth was telling Joe that their beef was not with Joe. They didn't have an issue with Joe, that it was with Ray and Kevin. And he turned around to walk away and looked at AOP and said, finish him. Of course, this brought out AOP beating the crap out of Samoa Joe and putting him through the announcer's table. So that, and Seth Rollins stomped Ray onto the stage. We can pretty much guarantee that will end up being a 6-man tag match, most likely at the Rumble. May happen before then, but it'll most likely turn into a feud between Ray, Kevin, and Samoa Joe versus Rollins and AOP. That could happen on one of the Raws, maybe a January 1st Raw. Or I should say the week of January 1st, which is next week. But maybe the first Raw of the year, which would be the 6th, I think. We will have to wait and see what they turn out doing for that. But anywho, that was my recap Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas. And I will see you peeps later for my NXT recap. And I will probably do a NXT slash SmackDown recap. That seems to work out fine. And I will talk to you peeps later. Smash the like button if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Other than that, I will see you later, peeps. Peace out.